Yeah, we're moving. Should be good to go. All right. Bear with me as I'm getting myself together here. This morning, I have myself pretty well figured out. We're gonna wrap up these. What do we have here? He's trying to talk to me about Facebook. Like, that's not good. So I've got some Marines here. We're gonna try and get a batch of them together. Recently, I've been working on this gentleman here, getting his cloak to where it makes a little more sense. I think we're going to continue that today. He's a little bit more tension than the rest of them. We're also tidying up some of the shoulder pads, so as we go. For example, just smoothing up the blends, making sure that they've got a solid amount of the turquoise. Packed into those recesses. For example, on this gent. Just pack a little bit of this in there, like so. With a clean brush, I'm just gonna smooth it down to the very edges. Very tight, almost like you're lining it, but only in the corner. It'll also leave a nice glaze filtered across the angle there as well. And there's some, like a hint of it in the front still. I think on this particular guy we've got a little bit of spattering from the airbrush, and we can just tidy that up as well. A little bit of each color. A nice blend where they meet. I think that helps out a lot. And over here on this side, we're going to do the same thing. We've got that purple down already. Just meeting it with the next tone. And where they meet, we just give them a little agitation so they blend. There you have it. And his other shoulder looks pretty good. I'm just going to tidy up, add that little accent. Oh, there's a familiar face. Good morning, Daniel. How are you today? Here we're just being persistent, pushing the paint very specifically where we want it. In the front, we want it to be very fine. On the back side of the shoulder, it can be kind of sloppy. Daniel says, hey man, I'm good. How's you? You know, we're doing all right. Look at that. There's a big subscription. Thank you, sir. 5 months. What a strange trip it's been. Blood Angel Callum, thank you so much for the follow. Good morning. How are you today? We're just working the world's laziest 2-brush blend here, where it's just a 1-brush blend. But I think those shoulders are looking pretty cool. Eyes are in, gun is done. He gets to go over here. But yeah, back to this little guy. Blood Angel Callum says, I'm good. I ruined my only base brush yesterday painting a ball predator. What's a base brush? Is that like a dry brush? I don't think you can do that. Tactical Booty says, hey Chris, well hey back at you. Callum says, and my local Games Workshop is shut until Wednesday, so that's good. Base layer brush. Like a big brush? I don't know anything. So, Daniel and Tactical, what do you think about the volumes as we're building them up? We've got Laura Croft Leon. Is that how you would say that? Hopefully that's correct. Good morning. How are you doing? Thank you so much for making the corgi wiggle. Punching up the contrast on this thing. I think I have some pretty good volumes coming in. I don't know if I want to punch it too much more though. I think for the tabletop that's striking enough back there. We do it to the front. Tactical says, looking good. Well, thank you, Tactical. Let's see what we have here. There would be probably a pocket of light down here and down here. For sure, to some degree out here. So, Blood Angel, how did you ruin your base brush? Unless the Predator came to life and decided it was going to maul the thing. That'd be gnarly. Yeah, I think we'll start there. We'll leave it darker up there in the recesses. Daniel says they're subtle and smooth. We get the buttery silkiness. Should they be more contrasted? Likely. Always more contrasted. Alright, I hear you. I'm just going to do the sketching on the front. These folds here, even though they are pretty well rippled across here, this whole pocket would be highlighted, I would believe. And then as they peek down, I think it would just be the edges. And up here in the recesses and edges, it's all going to be under shadow because it's underneath his armor. So I think we're going to try and do that for our volumes. Mixing quite a bit more of this highlight tone. We'll try to be even more aggressive with them. The next step will be to smooth these layers out, these kind of sketchy volumes that I'm making. We'll maybe hit a little bit of these. We got Hime the Fox Goddess. Hime, H-I-M-E, Hime? How would you say the beginning of that name? Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the stream. We're just starting to sketch in some contrasty volumes here. And then we will refine them and make them look smooth. Very soon. This just helps me figure out where things are. Hime, it's Japanese. Hime. Thank you so much. It's important to learn things like that. Well, welcome in. We've had a handful of follows here in the last few moments. I hope everybody's having a good day. If any of you are miniature painters, please let me know. We can talk about the minis. Remind me as I knock things over, though. Just checking some glaze consistency. I think we want to water that back a little bit more. That's possibly much better. Okay, let's start to blend these together. Here I'm taking that mid-tone that I used initially. I've glazed it back. And we're just going to start layering it over top of these highlights and transitions until it starts to smooth over. May even cover up our shadows a little bit, glaze it back into that region as well in places. It'll not only smooth the transitions, but it helps, because it is a redder color, it will help keep the color vibrant. Red just really, really likes to be layered on top of itself. Hime says, I just love art, so relaxing. Well, this is a good place to do that for sure. Taggo says, speaking of, I posted my first shot at painting a miniature on my Insta. Tactical, why don't you, if you're comfortable, share a link? That way everybody can see your wonderful art. For those of you not familiar with Tactical, they do these wonderful, they're cells, right? It's a comic book, but they're doing these fun cells on different subjects, and they're really well drawn. I'm just going to bring that purple up in here. I sadly cannot jump into that right now. I've got to work these blends while the paint is wet. Otherwise, we'll lose everything. Here I'm doing that same two-brush blending technique Daniel says already on a tactical. There you go. Thank you, Daniel. And since we built the color up, now we just got to build it back. And that's what we're doing here on this next ridge. And then up here on our edges, we're going to pack in just a little bit of that turquoise, as well as down in here. Add me friend, when are you getting your hair cut? Add me friend 1 says, when are you getting your hair cut? How old's your account there? Like a super spammy name. Always throws me for a loop. Actually, I am getting a haircut here on the 14th. I did not forget about it. It just always makes me look. Just one of those things. When you catch me at 5:40 in the morning. Blood Angel Nash says, well, well, well. Do I see even more Spoos Marines? There are a few of them. We're finalizing the list here. I've got, what, a Grav team. We've got 25 of the Marines are in the core list. And then I've got the specials here, like this gent we're working on now. Down here in the very recess, get our shadow tones in there. We're just gonna, you have to have the dark right beside the highlight if you want it to look super contrasty. And depending, you just push your darks darker and your highlights lighter, depending on what you're after. We're going to put even more of this little blue. Angel Nash says, how many points is the list? I am not certain. I can tell you that their owner purchased enough stuff to do them in this infantry style. They've got enough to do it in a vehicle style. It's a whole thing. I will say that it is extensive. I'll get you a number on that, Nash. Once I get these infantrymen done, we're going to start on these guys. And there's some, I forget what they're called, that are on the jump packs. I've got this up on the docket. I just got done cleaning the flash off of these smoke trails. Got an attack bike. Got some Primaris. Snipey boy. Smooth that transition there. What we have back in this recess. This fold's a little bit more interesting. Now he says, is it 40K points? Yes. I only just started a list for my own. Yeah, this is a monstrous list. There's a drop pod over there, over my shoulder. Oh, Bugs Bunny's Demon. Look out. Adme says, I'm going to college next month. I've been sleeping at 4. I hope there's night school classes for me. That's funny. For night classes for an MBA. Actually, jokes aside, that's probably an option. But I mean, for sure, fix your sleep schedule. And a little bit of this up in here as well. And you know, sometimes it's fun to take your highlight color and put it up in here where you're in the shadows, just in a couple places. If you're sparing enough with it, I think you can get a really cool result. Might have to thread the needle here. Huh. Come on now, paint. Try and get a little more paint on the brush. Maybe it'll come off a little smoother. But yeah, I think that our robes are looking a little smooth. Smooth enough to jam. We could punch the contrast a bit more, to Daniel's point. Let's see here. These edges, perhaps. Maybe down here a little bit on these edges. Perhaps over here. I think that looks good as well. We'll ride this edge out. And maybe just a little down here. The Zombie Dance team leader says, yawn. Morning, Slick. Well, good morning back at you. How are you today? Hope everybody had a pretty good weekend. Trying to figure out how hard I want to push the highlights on this particular round surface of Doom. It has been a little bit of a struggle for me. I need to get some water on this color. I think that'll help out quite a bit. It's a much better consistency. Kind of must have dried a little overnight. Excuse me. Zombie says, not sure yet. Only been up about 45 minutes. Same. Yeah, I get up at 5 when I'm streaming. Nash says, I'm making a Blood Angels list mind me plugging a picture here? Show it, please do. Amy says, "You see Titans Patriots?" Did I? No disrespect to Patriots fans, but around these parts, anybody playing the Patriots is somebody that I will root for. Alright, let's see what we can accomplish here. Boatload of paint on that, I don't want to eat. What we're doing is just smoothing this transitions a little bit so the paint's not super opaque. Nash, I'm not going to be able to click on that, but everybody, if you want to check out what Nash is working on, please have a look. I will try to get to that here shortly. Get a tab open for it. But if I stop here, my paint might start to tear, and that will break my heart. Some things are very time sensitive, and this just happens to be one of those things. It's already being a little fuss bucket over there. It needs re-glued. Just going to apply that glaze like we did on the robe. Smooth that over. I may need to just find a brighter color. Because we're seemingly not getting a result here. See what we have here. Oh. Yeah, you need to find somebody that knows how to play 40K that can help you with that. If anybody has any insights for Nash. Because I'm a lame-o. Let's see what we have here for opportunities for this verdigris on him. Budsky89 says, I play a lot of 40K. What is the question? Just a moment ago, Nash listed a link to their Blood Angels list. And I don't know enough about the game to help anybody. Laura Croft Leon says, at Nomadic Chris, I'm looking for some good skin tone paints. Which ones do you recommend? For out of the pot skin tones, I really enjoy the Privateer Press line. Their Midland and Cardian Flesh and Rin Flesh are really good examples of neutral, ruddy, and fair. I would take those and learn how to mix a little bit as well, if you want to get into some more advanced stuff. When I did my Vampire Count bust, I did the Cardic flesh and mostly just mix the skin tones otherwise. Zombie says, grumble, 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 need coffee, be right back in a few, lurking from a distance till then. Ooh, I'm going to wrap up this Cobalt application, and then I'm going to drink some coffee myself, I think. Pack a little bit of this up in here. Lutsky says, I suppose the best question is, how do you intend to win with it? Yeah, I don't understand the rules anymore, but I used to play quite a bit competitively back in the day. And I remember the majority of games I played were won in deployment, and then that was step one, and step two was target priority. And if Budsky plays, maybe they can answer this question. Occasionally, in any game, you'll have, like, you're playing in a format, right? There's things in the rule set that are legal, whatever it may be. There'll be something that's like a dark horse. It'll be somewhat of a test. There'll be models that are hard to kill in some respect. They will either have a lot of wounds, or they're going to have a lot of armor, something. It's like a test, and whatever you're going to play has to be able to pass that test, or you're going to have a bad time. If it exists in your meta, like, you don't have to look at like all the lists ever. Sometimes you need to only look at what's available in your particular pond of water. I remember in Magic there's a card, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and if that thing hit the board, the conditions under which you could actually destroy it were limited. And if you couldn't pass his particular test, you need to reevaluate what you were playing. And 40K seems to have a lot of really, really large models these days, and so I can't imagine that they're not a particular test you got to figure out how to pass. Adme says, I saw my stepmom's coffee-stained teeth. All I'm going to say is I'm glad I take caffeine pills. You can always just swish your mouth with water after you're done drinking it, or as you're drinking it, as his dentist recommended. Nash says, it's really melee-based. As far as I know, deployment is very important. So basically it's going to be an aggressive army. Pushing Death Company ASAP to get them into the charge range. Budsky says deployment and target priority are definitely important, but with 8th, it's all about deciding what your win conditions and building around that. So if I wanted a guard army that captured a lot, I wouldn't go all tanks with Cadia. Oh, so you're saying, like, what kind of win conditions do you intend to take advantage of? Like, what are you, an objective taker? Are you going to try? I was watching a couple games get played over the weekend, and I noticed that there's, like, you choose these certain, correct me on what they're called, I don't recall, but, like, one of them was Big Game Hunter, and one of them was Engineers, and they were picking, like, there was like hold more or hold some. There were all these different things that they were requiring points on round by round. And he's coming in with all the love for everybody. Which is a good point, Budsky, because back when I played, there was very little objective. Point-wise, it was just, do you maintain the objective at the end of the round kind of stuff. And now it seems to be that you can rack up quite the point total before the game ever even ends. I mean, apparently it's possible, allegedly it's possible, to win a game after you've been tabled, because your opponent just can't acquire the points that you did in the time remaining. Budsky says, I versed that exact dread twice, and both times it was run ahead of the army and easy to take out. At the end of the day, it's 8 wound dread, so be smart with it. Do you have a dread that is able to be made a character? Because apparently there's a rule where if the character is not the closest thing, it can't be shot. You gotta fire it at like closer infantry. So from what I understand, you can actually hide monsters like dreadnoughts, provided they're a character. Yeah, I was just watching, but my friends have been trying to get me back into playing. Here we're just applying our next color. Starting to layer in the verdigris how we might like it. On these characters I'm being much more deliberate than I was on the infantry. I think I might do some up here on his hood while we're on that subject. Oracle, oh my, how are you? I don't think I've chatted with you too much here into the 2020. Good morning. Budsky says, we're talking, for those just joining, we're talking about 40k and play styles, win conditions, things of that nature. Budsky says, but it's an expensive unit to slowly move. It is meant to be to first turn charge. You guys killed me. It is meant to first turn charge. The problem being that you can easily just move back next turn and take it off the board before they reinforce it. Abney says, did you see the new Star Wars movie? What did you do for New Year's Eve? I did not see the new Star Wars movie just yet. But I did finish up The Mandalorian, and that was pretty cool. And New Year's Eve, we just had some friends over to the house, and we had a little party, and it was pretty good. I think our music. Nash says the Death Company is the main key in the list. On turn 1, you can use 2 command points to move them up by a lot, usually into charge range. Oracle coming in with these adorable little emotes. Happy New Year back at you, Twilight. Nash says the Dread isn't there to get in front of the army, but as support to the Death Company for the list. Butsky says a strong list in theory, but in practice it's too easy to knock out targets. Well, I think you got to play test to see where it's going to land for you, to be honest. There's always ways to be critical. I mean, what I was watching, I watched Iron Hands playing against the Chaos list. And this Chaos list had 3 tanks. They have like these nifty looking Nurgle pustules all over them. They had the plows on the front that looked sick as could be. And they got those tight cannons. And those things have flamers on them that auto hit. Who thought that was okay? That's what I want to know. Auto hitting. Well, I guess flamers auto hit in general. But the thing is, put out like 2d6 potential hits, and then they just got a wound. Like, I think it's strength 8 or something. Or is it just they put out 2d6 hits, and then like whatever you roll is the wounds, perhaps. Please fix my lack of understanding, but it just seemed to me the moment those things started getting within flamer range, it was ugly. Very, very ugly for the Marines. Playing some Chaos Possessed. With like a 3-up invulnerable. Plague Bust Crawlers are mint. That might be what they are. Nash says, but I'll have to see. It's my first real list. Yeah. Hey, and Nash, if you're just building it out of what you have, that's a totally different thing than like what would you play had you had, or would you happen to have like all the models ever. So it's like you build what you can, you play the way you want to play, and I think what Budsky's saying does make a lot of sense. And so perhaps while you're playing, start looking for things that are limitations, like what things are entirely too circumstantial to rely on when you're after a victory, and then we can have another conversation about like what would you do to correct this. Do you have any models? Here's another question. Do you have anything that's assembled and painted that you have around that you're not playing with? That would be a real question. Like what are you playing? What do you have available to choose from? I think that would be a productive thing to talk about. Budsky says, all flamers auto hit now. Play test it for sure. I've just been easily able to take out those units in one turn with my guard, which should be the absolute perfect target for an aggressive Blood Angel list. Well, the thing is, like, did 3 of your infantrymen make combat and then mow down some guard? Admi says you are going to see Fury versus Wilder next month. I don't think a combat between heaven and hell could stop me. Be some fireworks for sure. I like a good aggressive army in a lot of games. The concerns that I have when playing them, even outside of 40k, like let's just say you're playing even like a video game, the issue is with proper preparation you run into issues where they may just counter deploy you, or it's very circumstantial based on scenario. Like you may roll a scenario where a list like that just auto wins. You may roll a scenario where a list like that auto punts. But I don't know that that's a bad thing. Maybe that's just the way you want to play it. Maybe sometimes you just want to come out and roll some big old numbers on somebody. Also, do you really need that many CP? So, I don't know what command points do. I noticed that people use them to reroll dice. I watched an orc player bring back like a whole squad one time. Like, they seem powerful, at least from what I've seen. We have our next color together. Budsky says, if all your work is done with 4 CP over 2 turns, then it's smarter to fill gaps where your army is weak rather than be forced to take multiple troops. The bring back troop CP are the rarest. Here we're just adding in that true gem verdigris. Let's see up here. But the other thing is, Nash says I have to look into that stuff as well. Miss Dinky Dino, good morning. says, just popped in to say hi before I head out. Have a fantastic stream and day. You as well. The detail looks cool. The paint makes it look so wild. Well, thank you. I'm digging doing some cloaks. I've been painting so much with the shoulders that it's nice to do something a little more organic. But thank you for hopping in. Adme says, oh no, Adme said the detail. They gave you two the same color. How adorable. Nash says, I'm already considering changing the heavy stuff around. Well, Nash, here's one thing I'm going to add into this, and I'm sure Budsky's going to have a similar opinion. You need hours with the dice. You need time playing the game. Though I don't play anymore, I have always been very competitive about any game that I do play, at least in mindset. And you need the time to play regardless. So how do I want to say this? It's important to learn the lessons on things like perhaps what Budsky's talking about, the opportunity to play a game and find out the limits on the list is an important lesson as well. Like an encounter with a guard player that may counter deploy you or counter maneuver you is important to realize, because you're talking about a list at full capacity here, but the reality is that round over you're going to have less and less of an army and things are going to play different. For example, that Chaos player that had those sweet tanks, they didn't move them up immediately, which after seeing what they're capable of, I kind of think was a mistake. Like, those should be brought into the game. But they didn't, and man, they took a game that was way close, and then the moment those things started hitting flamer range, it was like, oh no. He's gonna take it from probably getting tabled but winning on points to winning so hard. Budsky says, yep, time playing is the best teacher. Adme says, wild, huh? I said, Vivid, you need that coffee. I do need that coffee. Nash says, we'll definitely do that. Also, I love this list for the painting stuff. Don't need Blood Angels. Don't need the blood. Blood Angels have an ability to save a CP each round. That's cool. Budsky says this is all very true. Or you have that chance. Where are we at here? Budsky says it's not about saving CP, it's about not limiting your options for CP you don't need. So are you saying that it's kind of like a balance between like diminishing returns on a function like a command point? Daniel says the mortars on the Plague Burst crawlers have a minimum fire distance. They're best at long range. Daniel, I don't know if you know what Strength 8 2d6 does to Space Marines, but I'm just in the back watching, and they seem pretty damn good at every stage of the game. I don't know what the right answer is, but hey, he was back there, put him on objectives, firing them every round, and then it was time to get in the game. And he brought him up for the next stage, and it was like, so maybe I shouldn't be saying that he should have moved them up sooner, but my limited understanding was thinking, man, you should have done that a round sooner. Budsky says, you will not win with a relic that gives you CP if you have nothing to do with that command point. Oh, I understand. Zombie says, ah, yes. Cyclo Benefrine and coffee. What? Breakfast of champions. Okay, doke. I don't know what this medication does, but hopefully it's getting your day off correctly. What do we think here? Is that enough? Should we do more of this? I think we'll be sparing with it on this model. He's already got a lot going on. I think his robes are looking pretty good. Put him over here for now. I'm just going to manually apply some shoulders here. Zombie Dance Team leader says, Mr. Stupid Z. Psycho Benzabrine. Okay. Tactical says, you're all just speaking Klingon to me. That's right, Tactical. Most important reason to learn Klingon is to know when they're talking about you. Alright, let's get some more of this maroon in here. Purple is so darn dark, huh? Just tidy this guy up as well. Oh, you have to bear with me here on the chat because I've got a... Once I start on these round surfaces, you kind of gotta keep them rolling. Butsky says, honestly, the only way to win is decide what kind of 40k player you are and just be that way and enjoy. If you're competitive, then learn the competitive mentality and play against others that are the same. If you're not, then don't. That's a fair point. And that's one manual shoulder blend. Maybe a little bit more of this ochre into there. Not too bad. Zombie says, only 10 milligram muscle relaxer to prevent spasms. Well, hopefully that keeps you comfortable. Tadio says, which would be always. Always speaking Klingon, huh? Nash says, I'm not too competitive. I would like some wins, but losing isn't an issue to me. Yeah, I guess the competitive thing to me usually means trying to like grind somebody's soul into the table. So it's much more casual to enjoy your games, I would say. And that's a good thing. Admi says, in before we're all aliens. What game are you folks talking about? 40K, the game that these guys are used for. I'll just Google it. Taco says, bruh. It's 100% the most popular tabletop game. I think chess might be. But Zombie says, comfortable keeps me from laying on the floor doing a funky chicken dance. Funky chicken dance. Zombie, you got some humor on this. There's a gentleman in another stream that is pretty good about that self-deprecating humor. He's good about making people feel awkward. Butsky says chess is a board game. Fair enough. Admi says emphasis on gentlemen. Butsky says worth every penny. It's got everything you could want in a hobby. It's a pretty good game. Taco says not wrong, but oof. Butsky says unless you're a guard player like me, then you'll spend 2 hours setting up and 30 minutes alpha striking. Admi says, that's on eating fast food. I'll just get a liver transplant abroad when I'm 40 with MBA money. With MBA money. Go get that good Panama surgery. You got a little tear here. You see that little, it looks like a tea cozy? That's a problem. I'm gonna have to restart this whole shoulder pad. Try something pretty dramatic here. So basically, we're going to paint this whole area in a much, much brighter tone, and then try to glaze over top of it to get it to match. which is going to not be super easy. Oops. But we'll see. Zombie says, gotta laugh at it when I can, when the lower back locks up and won't let go. Last time it took 45 minutes to pull myself back up on my feet. Oh man. Brings muscle failure to a whole new level. And it sounds miserable. Budsky says, have you looked at Mephiston? He has some nasty plays. Dance team leader says, like lifting weights and holding it indefinitely. We got Nowsack in the house. How are you now? Nash says, I haven't. We're talking about. We're on 40K talk. List options for some Blood Angels. Nash says, I haven't. But I believe the list is made a while back. Okay. Oracle says, gonna give it that Mr. Shy treatment, huh? Mr. Shy treatment. Budsky says, yeah, it seems like a popular BA list. As I've versed it twice from two different players. Butsky says, depends on the matchup. Perhaps against Space Marines it is strong, which is most players. Yeah, Space Marines seem to be very popular. Trying to fix this tear. What do we got? On the plus side, we seem to have concealed the tear. These things are the devil. Okay. Pack the turquoise in, and he's going to go into the dung pile. Hudby says, for the record, I was joking about putting 40K game pieces in my mouth. A teacher would freak out. When students returned a Ticonderoga pencil she had loaned with bite marks on it. Like how you called it a Ticonderoga. Just the most classic number 2 brand. Going to smooth these out a little bit better. Realized as it was drying that I'd been more than a little bit sloppy with it. Okay. And as far as this blue goes, just put this in the corner. Probably over there too. Nice says, but I'll definitely look into some other lists as well. Main thing I need, play testing once I have about 500 points. Budsky says, try some unit you think are weak and see how they go. I never considered Hydras to be strong, but I've just added my second to my list because they are stars with my Cadians. Those are jungle guys, right? Cadians? Rambo looking dudes. Just a very little bit on that side. And this gentleman, he needs tidied up. It just takes a little bit of effort to get things like this to look correct. Take our next color and work our way into them. Sergeant Nexotech? Sergeant Nexotech, well, hi. Thank you so much. Glad to have you. Budsky says, Kachikins, Cadia is the greatest guard force that has ever defended the mighty Imperium. Cadian is more forest than fortresses. Okay, okay. You could fill several books with what I forgot about that game. A little smooth transition. Sergeant says, just finished my 1600 point Dark Angels. Oh, the dangles. We're just going to tidy this up a little bit. Letting that dry real quick. I know we have a lot of new faces in here today. If anybody's interested, as I sit here and paint over top of this shoulder pad, here's a link to my Instagram with things I normally work on outside of the Space Marines and progress across the whole army we're doing. But at the same time, if you yourselves are painters, feel free to link up, share your work with everybody. This other shoulder pad doesn't look too bad at all. I think we're just adding in a little bit of the tealy color, and then we're done. And that's not too bad at all. missed, though. There's a little gasket here. That's no good. So how's his arm bend without that? Sergeant says, do you paint them just creative, or is this a dynasty? I don't know. This is just its own custom chapter to be able to... They do not belong to me. I'm just painting them for someone, and they would like to be able to play them, you know, based... The concern in purchasing all these Space Marines, and there's a lot of them, was that a rules change would come up and then they wouldn't be playable. And so they wanted to go with something a bit neutral so that they could play them as a different faction if they changed the rules up on them. Budsky says, looks like Minotaurs. Yeah, I didn't know about the Minotaurs when we were cooking up the color scheme. But, yeah, the Minotaurs would be the only thing that is close to them. I believe they intend to play them as Iron Hands. So yeah, I went with the neutral tone color, the bronze. They wanted the verdigris. They sent me pictures of like the big daddies from BioShock. And so we went that direction, and then because of the cool greens that are in it, we went with some colder red and purpley tones to contrast it. But they're pretty cool, I think. This finger here as well. Get his little fingies. Make sure I didn't mess up on the palm and the back here. We did just a little bit. Let's bring his thumb back into the life. Just make sure we didn't make any mistakes around his eyes. Very little. Oh, Nossack's got a link. I'll give that a look here in just a moment. Zombie says, talked to my son yesterday about getting back on a normal sleep schedule before break is over and goes back to college. I'll handle it for him. I'll hand it to him for setting his alarm, which went off 10 minutes ago, but he's already snoring again. You know, you gotta make those efforts, right? Budsky says, it's nice. It's a nice paint scheme for sure. Well, thank you so much. Sergeant says, pure holiday ending tomorrow. Holidays are ending tomorrow. Our holidays are ending tomorrow. I'm so sorry. I can't. It's too early for me. The Zombie Dance Team leader says, still 3 weeks to go here. Look, I had like 2 days. Alright, let's switch over here and take a look at what Nullsec's working on. I can tell you already, we got a painter in our midst. Look out! Look at this little goby. I like what you did with the textures here, not on the blade. Right there, it's a nice little contrast. Oh yeah, black is such a bear of a color too. It's always nice when someone takes the time to work on something that's challenging. Like even like, look, yellow, that's another hard color. Again, you get that textured contrast between the smooth blade and the rough, like pig iron. Working those non-metallic highlights. What we got here? Is this Infinity? I think it's Infinity. Oh, here's a popular model.
What would you try to do with the source lighting? No, not try to do, did with the source lighting. Well, that's pretty sick. You need to be more brave with that. That's awesome. Look at that. Little sleepy owl. That's me right now. With my coffee. Get all of this. Red, another beautiful color. Oh yeah. You got a ton of work. I'm gonna look through this more later. If anybody's not following, check them out. Ooh. Let's make it the playlist here. Where are we at here? Budsky says, wicked painting there now, Sack. Yeah, I can't agree more. Zombie says, that sumo guy looks slick. Who makes it? Yeah, I love... I like anybody that... Or anybody's work that wants to put in the effort. And you're doing some good stuff there. Nice says, for now, excuse me, I'll just stick to the list, get some playtime, see what to improve afterwards. Yeah, Nash, I think that's the important thing. Maybe take the ideas that were given here today and keep them in the back of your mind as you go forward. We're just going to smooth this glaze out here. And then we'll move on to the next one. Digits? Is that how you would say that? D-E-I-G-H-T-S. Digits, perhaps. Thank you so much for the follow. Hopefully I got that correct. Budsky coming in with a, oh boy. At a Warlord Titan, you'll never lose. Well, they do have to be able to kill them, I assume. Like, if you can't... What's one of those tests? If you can't kill the Titan... Just be to smooth this transition with some thicker paint. I'll get quite a bit there. Look out. Haha. Nash says, are they overpowered at the moment or something? I think they're just really big. Digits with the wave, with the hive. Budsky says a Warlord Titan would obliterate a hive city in about 2 seconds. Oh, good lord. Nash says, damn. Can I bring 5? If you got the money. I think they're hundreds of dollars, right? Nash says, probably not. Now Sack says to the zombie dance team leader, I don't know which one you mean. Feel free to link, Zombie, if you want to share which one you're talking about. And he says, the list I'm building right now will be the full extent of the year or a little shootier. Budsky, what, how many points in the game is a Warlord Titan? Let alone how many dollars is it to own? 5,000, 6,000. Good lord. Save money on a Warlord Titan by dressing up a toddler in boxes of tinfoil. They're toddler sized, huh? They've given you just Renfield. They've given you black text for your name. It matches my dark scheme. So it took me a second to get your name pulled up. I think if I got back into playing, I'd probably play Tau. I think they're good enough to appeal to me right now, and at the same time, they're complicated enough play-wise to keep me interested. Done and done. That Mr. Shy. Look out. There's a shy guy in our midst. How was your weekend, Shy? What have we missed? I'm so sorry. The child would be more like an Emperor class. Depends on the toddler, right? Morning, morning. Nalsac says to the zombie leader, it's from Andrea Miniatures. The reference is... Okay, gotcha. Tactical. Budsky says, Tau. Filthy. Budsky, it sounds like you just need to embrace the greater good. Budsky says, Tau are not complicated. From what I've seen... movement with the Tau is everything. It's a lot of it. Excuse me. Renfield says, first day back at work. Nash is good. Shy says, I'm only shy at first. If you make me comfortable, I'll open up. Careful how comfortable you make the Shy. No, I'm saying. Do it. Do it to it. Shy says the weekend was pretty decent. Mostly business as usual. Just getting on with it. And there you go. I'm trying to come to my senses here on Monday morning. But I think we'll be alright. Excuse me. This nagging little bit of cold would just let go. Just move on already. That's all I'm saying. It's like new subject. What do we have here? Look at this. A little bit of failure on my part. Let's clean that up now. Not looking too bad. Shy says, understanding how to best utilize your drone... Oh, where are we at? Understanding how to best utilize your drones and how to properly screen your assets is fairly advanced with Tau. That's what I'm getting at. Like, there's certain things that have to use it, it takes like a lower threshold, and some takes a higher threshold. Let's talk about paint. Let's put it into some kind of reference. True metallic metal versus non-metallic metal. The non-metallic metal has a very lower initial threshold to get into it, whereas true metallic can just be slathered on, so I guess technically it has a lower. However, absolutely doing them correctly, very, very high level. I think Tau may be, with the screening and the capacity to put the drones where you please, can be a little more advanced. Butsky says they are shown as mobile shooty army, but they have too much range and firepower, so mostly they are static gun lines, and they use drones to protect themselves. But Butsky, it seems like they need to come out of their castle if they want to win on points, right? So you set up your Death Star, so to speak, and then when you go to get mobile, you need to be ready for it. You need to do it in the right turn. Kind of like popping NOS in a car. Renfield says, closer to Imperator, to be honest. The Emperor class is a bit shorter than the status of Liberty. Statue of Liberty. There you go. Butsky says, that is not Tau at all. Nope. I don't know. I don't play anymore. I'm just reading. And from what I've seen, like the ability to go mobile. I watched a guy lose last night because he decided to advance out of his castle a turn too late. My assessment was it was a turn too late, but Shai says, all the best Tau players I've ever known run a gun line with a mobile concentrated fire support section. The fast suits with the big guns are incredible, but you have to be able to deploy your drones preemptively to where the big suits will be dropping down to lay down fire. Tacto says, screw it, give me an army I can Zerg rush with. They're called Tyranids, and they in no way ripped off the Zerg. Or whichever way you want to take it. I don't know which one was first. Somebody took some creative liberty with not being original. Shai says at Budsky, I think you're playing against very bad, very lucky Tau players. Yeah, Shai, we were talking earlier. I went down to my local shop here over the weekend, and there was a Chaos player playing this list that had a ton of heroes. He had these slick-looking Nurgle tanks, and he had like a lot of Possessed and couple demon princes. The thing was gnarly. I was talking about how powerful those tanks seem to be with their flamers. Possessed seem broken. Butsky says, I don't know anyone personally who would consider Tau a complex or skilled army to field. Once again, they have very over-tooled units. You know, Butsky, I think from a competitive standpoint, all armies are complicated to play at the highest level. I don't think anybody's riding for free when it comes to overpowered business right now. Except for maybe like Marine lists that just do everything really well. But again, I'm just watching from the shadows. Because once I tip my toes in the water, it's going to be a very assertive, all-in kind of effort. All right. Motoring right along with these. Oh, Shy sends out a novel. Hang on. Shy says the problem, Budsky, is that you can't overcommit drones to protecting your fire teams because you need them to protect the mobile assets, which means your main gun line is incredibly squishy in matchups like, say, Death Guard, Blood Angels, Tyranids, or Fast Eldar, etc. A lot of things with pointy spikes. They really struggle to hold their line and get wiped quickly in combat, at which point they become reliant upon their mobile assets. They are not a static gunline army unless they're in a favorable matchup. Yeah, to me, you don't have to, when you take a drone with like one of the suits, they don't have to be like in unit cohesion, right? Like you can move your drones about. Is that correct? So to number one, use the drones to screen. Seems really useful, but to move them and screen correctly. Yeah, Shai says they often take drones as separate squads. Yeah. Just nothing about that army seems to be as straightforward as they might want you to believe. I think that's really was my initial point. Like, this doesn't seem to be as simple as it looks. I think it's got a lot of moving pieces. But that might also be my like oversimplification of the situation because I don't understand enough about the game. I used the reference earlier. Shai says, yeah, I'm with you, Chris. They are often far more complex than most people think they are. That's, to me, and this comes from like the competitive Magic play from back in the day. It's like you look at something, and if it seems simple, you need to have a deeper look at it. Like, some of these decks, like obviously there's like some aggro that you might as well sleeve it upside down because it, spins on a top, like uses its head to like run across the board at you. Very low skill set there, but there's still high level play involved in aggressive decks. Like, there's world class players that will always play aggro, and they're just very, very good at it. You can say what you want, like, oh, this is just real simple, it's this, it's that. Well, it's not. Those aggressive players are probably very, very good control players, and because they have such a high level understanding of the control play, they can then abuse their aggressive decks versus them. Sergeant says, what would you say, Stormhawk, Interceptor, or Centurion Devastator squad? That's a question for somebody that knows the format. Oh, Shai, here. Question for you, sir. How do you think we're doing with the contrast on his robes here? I think it's in a pretty happy place for a tabletop. Obviously, there's always more contrast to be done. But I think I'm getting a pretty shiny look out of some matte paint. This is what we started out today with. Shai says Magic is actually a good thing to find parallels in the same way as playing aggro involves very few decisions, but the decisions they make are super high impact. Yeah, very high risk, high reward kind of things. Whereas control, each decision has lower impact, but you have to make multiple decisions every turn cycle. Tower like playing aggro. I like it, it's working for me. Yeah. Trying to keep, for me, at this stage, obviously the blends are a thing that's always going to be a thing to improve, but trying to find like the light volumes, like instead of just doing the edges here, it was like, this whole thing, this whole pocket here should be highlighted probably, and then like as it trails out it would be recessed and recessed, even though this is technically at the same degree of sculpt. Just trying to forever have that in my mind. Alright, that guy's done as well. So I've got to do 25 Marines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 have been completely refined and they are good to go. A number of these are also ready. I just need to go through the pile. We got a Grav team. We got the Sorcerer. We got 5 Snipers. The Centurions. I'm gonna do this. This bro. I hate whatever this material is. Excuse me. I do not know what he's made of, but I dislike very much the material. Budsy says, going to 100% disagree with you. They have extremely strong rules for what they are meant to do and have a lot of counters for their weakness. You want complex mobile shooty army, then go with Necrons. Okay. Shai says FW resin, probably mostly biscuits and PVA glue. I think Shai, people might call it fine cast, but that's what subtly what I'm saying. Like, you tell me what they sell you, it has a name, but I don't like it. It is definitely something. I think they got a food processor. They're mixing up some glue and then they just pour it into a cast. Yeah, Budsky, I think everybody's going to have different opinions when it comes to certain aspects. To me, like from a philosophical standpoint, I try to dig in beyond the initial understanding of a thing, but not like to the point where I would say like, oh, this and that and the other thing are just too much or they're too powerful. I don't honestly know what's broken and what's not. I think Tau are definitely very good. I think I've looked into what the championship players are playing in Tau, and I can understand that, it's not like every army's Tau at the top. It's not like it's super busted. It's just a very good army if you have a very good pilot. I do believe that Tau is one of those armies that has always required a higher skill set to get into it. Good morning. Hang on a second, guys. My wife was just asking me if I fed the cats this morning. She's like, "Has the little girl cat been fed?" I said, "I fed all the kittens." And she's like, "Well, then why is she yelling at me?" I don't know why she's being so vocal. Because she's bad. Some of the worst casting in the hobby. Blood Angel Nash says, I need to work with resin for my Lemartes? I don't know what this word is. Tactical says the Drakari keep drawing my eye. You like the little pointy ears on them? And the little spaceships? MacMan92 says, good day, peeps. Well, good day back at you. How are you now? Shai says the recommended 2K competitive Talus usually contain 30 Fire Warriors total, so that's about 10% of their points. Tell me go with their static gunline army. Oh, Shai, we don't need to murder the man over his, what's going on with him. I think that even not playing the soldiers could possibly be considered a gun line. It might just be a vernacular difference. To me, they're a point and click. You have to have the good deployment strategy and then proper movement to get them to be able to attain points based on objective and what have you. But at the same time, this new Overwatch rule seems broken. Especially with Tau Ceti. And then your target priority. I should say maybe that's probably the second most important thing. So you've got your deployment with them, and then their movement, and then you need to have the target priority to keep them alive. Sergeant says, last week my girlfriend asked me to give my whole army away for more money. Now I'm single again. Sergeant, truth in this? Truth in this? Shai says, well, conversely, about 40% of their points are usually spent on riptides. What's a riptide? Riptide's the big, like, Titan-sized shooty boy. My lack of understanding in the game is probably what's not helping this argument any. Butsky says your 4+ Bs is countered by, or ballistics, I assume, is countered by the marker lights getting charged, is countered by Tau being able to overwatch with multiple units on one charge. That Mr. Shai says marker lights have to hit, greater good costs, command points. Yeah, Butsky, what I'm gathering out of your side of this seems to me that you're oversimplifying what it takes to play them because they seem really good. And I don't think that that's a problem. I just think that there's more to it. That's all. Butsky says you want to take objectives, then you have high movement, your drones can take wounds on your big units. We got Wasted Wallaby 55. That's a Wallaby. That's quite the name. I love it. Thank you so much for the follow. Take the wounds for you, big units, with the Invo save and the Feel No Pain. Don't forget the Feel No Pain, Butsky. We got the Fog Knight in the building. Thank you so much for the follow. Sergeant's kicking the truth. That's a true story. Oh, man. That Mr. Shai says the Riptide is a big mobile suit full of guns. Just a walking star screen. Macman says, what you want is a nice and balanced chaos list. You get yourself some heavy supports and work the board. Get yourself a couple Possessed. Get yourself a couple of them Nurgle tanks. Get yourself all the good heroes. A bunch of those Nurgle piles to suck wounds. Blood Angel Nash says we need to send Chris back to play again. Yeah, I gotta get back into it. Sergeant's is saying this is real. It's all real. I would never disbelieve. That Mr. Shai says, I mean, I play Blood Angels and Guards, so I don't have a horse in the race. I just like waxing lyrical. I did play Tau for a number of years, though. I played Tau back in the day, just like way back in the day. Blood Angels. Nash says Tau's just a weeb army. Come on now. I think Nash and the Macman need to embrace the greater good. They just saw the error in their ways. Much better. God. If any army is very good. Alright, what we got? Shai says, man, I played Tau in 5th. They were real bad then. Back when the Khorne armies could take almost the entire army of Berserkers and Rhinos. Oh man, Nash says, at least I have Shantae on my team. S-H-A-N-T-E. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Macman says, I'll see the error in my ways when the Kroot are worth putting into lists. That Kroot Collector is one of my favorite models ever. Budsky89 says, if any army is very good at what it does and has a lot of counters for where it is weak, then it's not hard or complex. That's Tau in a nutshell. Fair enough, Budsky. Shai says, how do you feel about Bolter Imperial Fist armies or heavy support Iron Hands? I don't want to tell you guys, but these are probably Iron Hands. Okay? Look at this Grav team. Alright? You feel me? We're going to move and shoot a bunch of heavies. The only reason it doesn't dominate the current meta is because there's armies like Space Marines that 1,000% better. Did you play Blood Angels? I'm gonna leave you guys with this conversation. I gotta head out here for a couple of minutes. I'm gonna grab a drink and I'll be back. Give me like 5 minutes. I'll run an ad while I do it. We'll see you just a few minutes. All right, sorry about that. All right, what we have in here. Did I miss anything good? We may never know. All right. Shai says, by scrapping a dread or two and nerfing Lieutenant, you'll be able to afford a squad of Sanguinary Guard, I think. I think it's interesting that you can hide the dreads as, like, characters. I think that's pretty cool. I think if I was going to take a dread, that's how I'd do it. Because the real issue with them is, you know, they're not going to make it to combat to be super, super deadly. But if you hide them behind something, I think the opportunities for them to make combat are much, much more likely. Letsky says, remember deep striking is a 9-inch bubble, so I can screen out with hyper cheap units and force you to take an entire turn, even get into combat with a unit. Can Sang survive the entire turn of focus fire? My experience says no. Mr. Shai says, what exactly is a twin las cannon contemptor and a jump pack going to change? Not telling him to drop any of his anti-infantry capability. I'm just going to speed read through this. Nash says, at the end of all of it, I honestly do not worry about the meta. The meta changes because the game changes. I just want the army to have fun with, but I do not want to be swept or sweep someone. You know, Nash, one thing that I brought up in the beginning of this that I think is still rings probably the truest is the meta isn't like the meta of the game so much as it's the meta of your local shop. If you're not going out to tournaments, then what you need to worry about in terms of like crowd control or heavy platform control is what is available. Like, what are people taking potentially against you? Because if there's not a lot of crowd, then you don't need to worry about crowd control. If there is, then you need to bring some guns that can drop some serious firepower. We're not talking about tabling somebody here. We're just talking about playing for what's around you. Xerxes says, good morning, or more midday from Sweden. It is 1:20 here. Is that Minotaurs? They look awesome. They're not. They're just a generic chapter, but they are a similar kind of color. And thank you so much. Just trying to keep everything looking fun. Clean this up here a little bit. Oh, too much paint. How about that? If you ever wonder why I check my thumb with the paintbrush ahead of time, that's why. Because the moment you don't, what do we got here? Music. Budsky says, yes, like I said, I've versed what am we on here? Like I said, I've versed that dread twice in a row. Both times it got into my front guard lines. I moved them back next turn and took them out with one Lehman Russ Tank Commander. I'd be using cheap as shit jump troops to screen your librarian to ensure it gets to their lines. Continue to move through them. There we are. Just tidy this blue back a little bit. I'm thinking that's not looking too bad at all. Yeah, we're gonna call him done as well. Here we are, just gonna work that blend. Do it again one more time on the other side. Possibly just a little more paint. Budsky says, honestly, if I let a regular dreadnought into my gun line, I'd just quit my guard and play Tau or something cheesy. Okay, Budsky, listen. Is this because I said I like the Tau? Just a Gundam fan, I mean. If guard looked cool, maybe I'd play them. I like the look of some of the guard tanks. Actually, I can find things I like in most of the factions. Oh, goodness. How about that? Let's just drop our paintbrush into the model where it does not belong. Ruining everything. Throwing out the cheese hearts, huh? I know I could sense some salt in this argument, Budsky. Like a well-seasoned plate. There we are. I think it looks all right. Butsky says, from me, nah, 8th has been great for me. Just won my local league flawlessly and have dropped maybe 5 games the entire edition. Butsky says, I'm just not going to BS someone about the Army Imperial Guard are full of cheese as well. And trust me, I play to that strength. There you go. But you don't think Tau are complicated in any way to play? Maybe that, again, that's just my failure to understand the game to a higher degree, and so things that are super obvious to somebody like yourself are not so much to me. Just giving these the once over here, because after this they're getting sealed and then they'll get panel lined. Which should be a good time, I would say. There we are. Maybe a little bit more. Since this is the back of the shoulder where it's darkest, let's go a little bit heavier. So, we'll see ya. Punsky says, I mentioned the meta a lot, but it's a good gauge. Tau recently had a huge win at the ITC during Space Marine Dominance. They have had 2 notorious spam lists throughout 8th, one of which added a huge new rule to nerf, and overall they have stayed relatively high in the placings. I still think Marines are a better army than the Tau at a glance. I still don't think that it's unwinnable for Marines. I think they're just losing to a really, really good player. Because it's not like you're seeing 10 Tau armies at the top. but I've only been following a short time since I got like back loosely affiliated with the game. Budsky says in a casual game, just like Guard, they absolutely dominated. Competitively, they're still tier 1. Just Space Marines have a lot more cheese and even less weakness. The Space Marines have always been their favorites. Kind of like trying to play green and black, like they've always get love and magic. These colors are like always good. My local shop uses the ITC rules too. Like they have the score sheets and everything. Even for when they're playing pickup games, they seem to adopt that rule set. These are all looking pretty good. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Did half of them today. That's not too bad at all. But it is time to look to pass this party along here. Let's get that muted. Let's see who's around. We have Daniel. We got that Mr. Shy kicking off. Let me see if Shy's. Nash says, anyways, I'm going for a beach walk. I'm going to take all the tips into consideration. I think the important thing again, Nash, is that you're playing something you want to have fun with. The idea that you should consider like the overall win conditions. I think that's a big point to try to keep in mind. Man, Daniel hasn't streamed in so long. And he's penning a Space Marine. Oh, Space Marine. Oh, Shy hasn't started yet. All right, that narrows it down. Damn. One of these days he's going to start early enough that we can raid him. We're going to catch Shy soon. All right, we're going to go see what our boy, the damnedest of Daniels, is doing. I hope everybody had a good day. Nash, we had some good talk about theory. And again, it's your army. You got to be able to play it your way. The idea is how do we make that play style the most optimum kind of thing. And I think to get there, you kind of have to have a better understanding of who you might be playing. One of these days you'll be late enough to raid them. Yeah, just with work, it's just not going to go. All right. Let's head off to Daniel here, and I hope everybody has a good day.
we go into like a little what's his face raffle kind of thing.